Hello. Okay, so I said I would make a video, basically, or like a tutorial for people, because people are like, how to use this thing, and I'm not too sure what I'm doing. So I thought I'd just try and make a video. But before I like actually show what I've made, I just want to like explain what this thing is and what it isn't. Um, Things that it isn't is something that you would take with you like into the backcountry and like actively use while you're on a mountain. I didn't make something that you would be pulling out because odds are your phone's gonna be dead by the time you're out there anyway. So what I did was I made something instead that helps with the planning phase of like going out into the backcountry and trying to aggregate the data. Because like when you go out there, like as everybody knows, there's a bunch of stuff you need. There's like weather, there's like a NOAA discussion, which is kind of like weather, right? Um, there's the advisory, right? From your local like avalanche or avalanche station, and then there's like the route planning, right? So route planning can be done by Gallia, Caltopo, or like even just a regular map, right? And then there's like, you as a person going out, looking at all this information and trying to relay it to whoever else is going to go with you uh, on this trip, right? So like people, right? And what I thought when I took the ARI course was that the system was really broken because I know that people do it, but it's just very hard to keep track of all this stuff that is going on and then somehow bring it back to all these other people. So instead what I did, I made something where you can easily grab all this information, including the route planning, right? And like send it off to the people that you want to go into the backcountry with, but also make it so that, you can share that information that you've gathered like with other people as far as like the route planning goes. So this is like basically like the home screen that you would log into the first time you go in. And it basically just contains like, there's a thing that says home base, and basically what it does when you load this thing for the first time, it looks at your location and then figures out the closest avalanche like region that you're near, right? Or if you're in one, it'll just literally pick the one that you're in. So for me, being in San Francisco, it picks like the Central Sierra Nevada region, and that's like denoted by like the blue line, like that's the region. And then the red thing is the lines for the forecast, or the NOAA discussion, because NOAA's discussions pertain to certain areas. So anyways, we have Central Sierra Nevada, and you can click on that, and it basically takes you to like their latest advisory. And if this thing ends up being wrong, you can always like change the home and pick the like correct location. So the first thing that you want to know, like pretend like I was gonna go tomorrow. Today's Thursday morning, so if I was gonna go like on Friday in the morning, I would start looking at the weather, right, to see what it's been like. So instead of like loading a different website from the Central Sierra Nevada website, I could just look at it right here in the same page, right? And off the bat, we know like, okay, it's gonna be sunny today. There might be like winds, variable, but there's not like any predominating wind. And then Friday from the southwest, there's gonna be wind. So that means like, it's gonna be blowing towards the north and whatnot. So that's like something I would keep in mind when I'm making a route for tomorrow. Yeah, so you could look further on, and basically what this gives us is a 10-day forecast. And like one of the things that people were asking about was like, well, how do you know that this like data is actually credible? How do you know that it's coming from the right source? So you can verify that by just clicking on the icon right here. So the Weather Channel / Weather Underground. This is like where the data is actually coming from. So if we load this, it basically loads the region where this is coming from, and you could verify it if you want. But yeah, right here we see partly clouds, low 22, winds variable. And this is in Celsius, but yeah, winds light and variable, right? Partly cloudy. So we know it's coming from the same source. And then also what we would want to see too is like the NOAA discussion, right? And this is like, instead of looking at raw data with the weather format, we'd actually be able to just see what the forecast people are telling us and give us like a lay down in layman's terms. And we can go about and read this, and it would basically help our decision making and, different areas we'd want to go. Again, like I remember when I was taking my ARI course, all these things that I'm listing out were things that the guy said, this is what you have to do. Like, don't like skimp out on, getting the information. So again, like to verify this, we can just click on the icon, and this takes us basically to the same thing. So it says weak high pressure will remain, or whatever, weak high pressure. So we know it's coming from the same source. And yeah, this was issued Thursday, November 30th at 2 a.m. So yeah, it's the latest stuff. And yeah, so like another thing, all right, so then lastly, like on your home base page, you would essentially have an advisory, and it doesn't look like, so the advisories are always broken up into different sections. As far as observation goes, it doesn't look like there's anything yet. We can click on problems to see what they have to say. And instead of like, again, looking at all this information on like 3 different pages and trying to like wrangle it together, it's all right here, right? So it's basically saying like, there's not too many hazards that we have to look forward for, like there would be if it was snowing a bunch, we would be looking towards like storm avalanches, or like if there was a ton of wind, and we'd be looking for like wind loaded aspects. But right now it says, what does it say? Generally safe conditions exist with a usable snowpack, yada yada yada. And if we wanted to look at the ratings, it doesn't look like there's a rating available yet. Again, it's like early season, so they're not giving those yet. But the weather, high pressure will remain over the forecast area until Friday, and on and on. Potential storms expected this weekend, and we can verify that because when we saw the weather, like it does show that it's going to be snowing later this week. And again, like we want to be able to verify that this data is correct. So if you click on the link, this takes you to yesterday's 3/28. And another thing we want to verify is like, is this the latest data, right? Yeah, so Tuesday, November 28th. And then basically so now we have like all this information, right? And we know, okay, it's generally safe to go out. We're not looking for too many storm avalanches. There's going to be wind coming from the south-southwest, and so that means we maybe want to stay away from like the north to north east aspect. But other than that, I don't know. So then we would, the next step would be, all right, I want to actually make a route. So if you click on the menu, click on the plus sign, go to plan route, and then this loads basically all the regions, the avalanche regions. And since I'm looking at Central Sierra Nevada, this loads that. So this is the Central Sierra Nevada region. You can see it on the bottom right hand corner. And again, like the underlying part, that's just a link to their website, just in case you want to go back to it. And all these like markers, what you have here is like sub-regions essentially. So these are like different places that one might go. So for instance, if I wanted to go to Castle Peak off of the I-80, this is the region, right? And we know that, or at least I know, like when we go from Castle Peak, it's off of the I-80, and we basically start right around here. So if I wanted to make a route, the first thing I do would be, well, I know that there's going to be wind, right? Like let's pretend I know that there's going to be wind coming from the south-southwest, so maybe I want to avoid the north. So the first thing I would do is click the north aspect on the top left, and this basically shades all the areas that are north. And let's pretend I wanted to be even more conservative and go north northeast, right? So now these are all the north northeast. And then below that we have a slider which says 10 degrees to 30 degrees, and it's not active yet because we haven't played around with it. Then we have like 3 different icons, the little hill one, the skier one, and the one that's just like an avalanche sliding. What these represent are just like different angles or different slope degrees of slopes. So the first one is like hilly area, stuff that you generally wouldn't see slide, but it's not to say that it wouldn't slide. So something between like 0 and 30 degrees. And the next one would be 31 to like, 40 degrees, because we know that slopes that generally do slide are somewhere between 36 and 38, or that's the slopes that most people slide in. So if I click that, it basically gives me all those regions, right? And now I can see like areas that I may not want to go in if I was trying to be just make conservative decisions. So places like this would probably be a no-go for me, because I'd be like, nope, I don't want to die today. Um, Places like this might be an area of concern of, hey, maybe if the bottom of this slope was connected to that, or I mean, if the snow in the bottom, where that trail is connected to those slopes up above, you might like remotely trigger an avalanche, even though you're not actually on the terrain, right? So, I mean, that's just something to keep in mind, right? So we have that info for us now. So then now, like, I actually want to make a route or start to make a route. If you look at the top right corner, there's a little like map with an icon on it. So if I click on that, I can start actually editing on the map, and let's pretend I'm gonna go through here, and I'm just dragging my finger, going across, right? And now it looks like there's not enough of the map, so what I do is I double click, and then it pauses the route building for me, and I can move the map again. Let's see. Okay, so maybe we want to zoom out a little bit. And you know what? For this one, let's just pretend we want to go to like Grub Hut, right? So Grub Hut is like located right here around Round Valley. So I'm just gonna draw the map out until there, and then keep going. But anyways, we're gonna double click again, and then now I can actually keep drawing. Right. So, all right, cool. And actually, I didn't want to draw all those points, but my iPad was messing up. So let's pretend I want to delete that guy. So first of all, I'm going to turn off route planning. And what I do is I just click on the icon on the right-hand side. So that's gone. And then now, when I clicked on the red point, there's like basically a little screen that pops up. And if I click on the X, it basically deletes that point and makes the route again without it. So now I have a route, and it basically goes out to Grub Hut. It's a place nearby Castle Peak. And yeah, so I mean, let's pretend I actually, I actually wanted to edit this route so that it actually went around that red area. So what I could do is, oh man, I messed up. Okay, so we're gonna delete this guy. Gonna delete him, gonna delete him, gonna delete him. Alright, cool. And then what we'll do is zoom in here. Alright, cool. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the point that was there, and I'm moving it to an area that's just a little bit further away from basically the area that I know that might be prone to, a remote avalanche. And again, I don't know, but I'm just erring on the side of caution and being like, I want to stay the hell away from that. So yeah, I'm giving that a bit of room. And then now I've drawn in my new route, right? Okay, cool. So let's pretend like this is what I want to go do, and this is like a route that I would actually go and share with my friends or whatever, the ones I'm gonna go with. Okay, cool. So yeah, hold up. Yeah, this thing messed up. Okay, so I'm just gonna delete these guys again. Alright, so I'm not gonna lie, there's like a bug on the route planning. For whatever reason, it just keeps drawing. But don't worry, I'll fix that. And then you guys won't even see that bug by the time you see this video. But anyways, so here's my route. And what I want to do next is I want to just show like, great, I was making this route, but let's pretend I wanted to actually look back on the information that I saw on my home base screen, right? So like the weather. So what I can do is I can click on the snowflake on the right hand side, and then I can click a point somewhere on this route, on the route, on the map, and it basically loads all the weather information that I was looking at before. And again, you could even click on this and see the NOAA forecast discussion that we were looking at earlier. And just like before, you could click on the link and it'll take you to the actual data page, or the page that contains the data, right? And again, let's pretend we wanted to see the advisory for this place. This shows us the advisory information that we've already seen before, right? So while we're making our route, we can take into consideration the info that we were looking at, right? Yeah, cool. So that's those few pages. Those are those three first icons. The right hand side one is for the route making. The second one is to see the weather, which contains the actual data and the NOAA discussion. The third one is to see your advisory information. And then the next one, so the way we made this route was we used the topo map, and topo, I mean, for what I made was like, wasn't too bad, but let's pretend I actually wanted to see something or a different type of map. You can click this to like cycle through all the different types of map that we can actually look at. So this is like, you can see how like, so maybe this route actually isn't doable because it looks like it goes over like some huge ass rocks. But anyways, the real route is defined there. You know what? Actually, maybe it's not too bad of a route to just go through because it seems like there's a lot of, um, you know, anchors in the snow or anchors that would be in the snow. So this like red region that I was concerned about probably won't slide. But if this was all like snow covered and there wasn't a lot of trees that to act as anchors, then maybe that's something I would take into consideration. But again, like using this map, I can actually see stuff better, right? Um, Another one is like the USGS map, which this one doesn't contain too much information, but when you combine it with the next map or the topo with the USGS map, we can see a lot of more, what is it? We can see stuff that's like, uh, better outlined. So for instance, what we didn't see before was this trail on the first topo map. So we can edit our route to like, go along that route or go along that trail that we see there. Yeah, so that's the fourth icon, which cycles through different, what is it called? Base maps. And the third one is the fifth one is being able to see your route basically in 3D. And you can like edit and see all the other stuff in 3D as well. It just by default loads in 2D because one thing that you guys all did when that I noticed when you guys were using the app the first time and you're like, WTF, why isn't this thing working? Was it loads in, a lot of people use the mobile, like a phone, to load this thing. And when you use a phone, your guys' phones just aren't as powerful as, say, a computer or something. So I had to make a lot of adjustments so that it could render smoothly on mobile phones. But that being said, like you probably can use it on most phones, the 3D feature. I'm using this on an iPad and it's working fine. I've used it on my iPhone 7. It works fine. But I defaulted it to 2D just because it's a lot less intensive on the processors. So yeah, anyways, this is the 3D view, right? And we can we can combine these 3D views, which this is a topo base map, with like the other types of base maps as well. So if I cycle through it again, this is the original one that we were looking at. This is the, what is it? The real terrain type one. But for whatever reason, let's just stick to the other one first. Cool, so now you can actually see stuff more in 3D and turn stuff around and whatnot. Yeah, okay, so then the little bars one is your stats, just like some generic stats. And what this does is gives you the total gain, the total distance that you've traveled, the total loss. And then it gives you basically a profile here. And let's see, if I turn this way, it might work a little bit better. Yeah, so it's a little bit more spread out now. And what I can do is I can drag my finger along this, and it basically gives me the position at any one point. So you could see okay, right here we're going to be going over a hill, and then it goes back down to a valley, then there's going to be a slight thing. So we could adjust our route basically to minimize all the times that we have to make huge elevation gains, right? Yeah, so it basically just goes throughout all that. Yeah, so that's the stats page, or the stats part, right? And another thing is, so when you load these maps, one of the things that you're able to do is actually give them a star or star them. And when you star them, it basically allows you to look at your starred maps within your routes region or within your page that lists out all your routes. And what this lets you do is let's pretend you were seeing some other guy's route that he planned out, right? You could star it and then save it so that you could see it at a later date. So it's not your route, but you're able to see other people's routes. And I'll get into that more later. And then, yeah, last but not least, just for giggles, was this rotating thing. So the icon below the star, if you click it, it just basically spins the map around. Yay, cool. All right, so those were basically all the icons that currently exist on the route planning page. And yeah, I do realize that there's no labels on anything. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to minimize the space that all these icons take up, especially on like mobile devices, so that you're able to work with the map more, because the map is really what matters. I get it, like, what is it, if you can't see, or if you don't know what the button does, then it's kind of useless, right? I'm still trying to work that out, so just like bear with me, because yeah. Anyways, yeah, so let's pretend, all right, I got this route. This is something I want to share with my friends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, if you see on the menu on the top, there's a map button. If we click down on it and then we go save as, we're actually able to save this route. So let's just pretend like, you know, we're going to call this early morning, because it's like 5 a.m. right now. Early morning route. Cool. And it's saved. And all right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my routes. So we have one called early morning route, and here we are again. So it basically just loaded my route, and it shaded all the areas that I was working with before. And yeah, here we go. So this is what it would look like to someone who is going to your map to see it. Yeah, or when you would come back to see your own route. All right, so the next part is taking that route and basically being like, all right, I actually want to make an event. So if we go to the plus sign again and we go to plan event, we could give it a name like, you know, today's Thursday, so like Friday at Grubhub. Or Grubhub, my bad. I don't know why I said Grubhub. And then if we give this a date and click on the little picture there and say we're gonna go on the December the 1st. So cool, this loads. So as you can see, there's nothing here yet, right? Because the point is, you're supposed to, like, the way I wanted to work this out was basically, whenever you talk to your buddies, like, all right, what do you guys want to go do in the backcountry? Everyone has their own idea of what the hell they want to do. And trying to communicate it out and decide on a route is kind of hard, because, you know, some people will make their routes on Caltopo, some people will make their routes on Gallia, other people will just do it on straight up paper, right? And when you try to like share all that information with each other, it's kind of like, well, everybody first has to learn the platform, and it just becomes kind of a mess. So what I did was, when you make a route here, you're actually able to add your own routes, and this is like basically all the routes that I've made. Oops. And what we can do is we can choose the route that I made just right now, like early morning route, and then add it to like the list, or oops, I added it 2 times. But what is it? Added to like the list of potential routes that we want to do. So here we have the route added 2 times because that was a mistake. And when we click one, so if we click on it, it basically takes us to the route that we had just made, right? And yeah, so this is a route that I made, and again, you can use it just the way you were using it in the other page. And it tells you the region, Central Sierra Nevada, you know, the actual sub-region that it's around, Castle Peak, the total gain, total distance. You know, if this thing showed like, I don't know, 10, you know, it's just for comfort, right? But this is in meters, so like, if it was something that was too far out of someone's like personal range, they would be like, you know what, I don't want to do that. That's too far for me, right? Yada yada yada. And then this is the advisory for that region. Again, it's the same data that we've been looking at, but now it like presents it. And this probably isn't too much of a problem in Central Sierra Nevada, because there's not another region that's close by around. But if you could imagine, for like places like the Pacific Northwest, there are regions that are right next to each other, right? So being able to see the correct advisory matters, because you don't want to be looking at like, you know, the, I don't know, Swallow King Pass when your buddy's trying to like go to another one that's right next to it. So yeah, anyways, point being, this is an easy way to get to the information that you want, right? So, or for all your friends to get to that information, right? Because all they have to do if they want to verify it is click on the link. And then again with the weather could change in different areas. Probably not so much in central Sierra Nevada, but in like Pacific Northwest, probably. Just because there's different areas, right? So yeah, this is all the weather, and they could look at the same stuff. They could see like, all right, there's gonna be winds, right, coming from the southwest, 10 to 15 kilometers per hour. There's gonna be snow, so if we want to go, we probably want to go Friday, not in the midst of a storm, where we could like expect to see storm avalanches. So yeah, it would be like, tomorrow's the day, guys. If we want to do this, we should do it. And then we have a region here basically that's like for note taking, and every other person who gets added to this route would basically get their own route or their own notes section, but only the person, like for instance, this says Bernardo Revel's notes. That means that I'm the only one that's able to save my notes in this block, right? And every person would get their own region for note taking, right? So I could write stuff like, I want to stick to like conservative routes, or like I don't want to go on north to northeast routes because I know it's going to be probably wind loaded, right? And when I load this route and you look at it, you can see that like it doesn't go over terrain that is like on northeast, right? Yeah, so I mean I didn't go too much into the route planning, but like because I want to stay away from northeast, maybe I'd want to do something that's like on the southwest. Maybe I'd want to go to here like Basin Peak, and it's not as steep as like say something that would actually slide, or something that's more prone to sliding, I should say. But yeah, so yeah, and like the thing is, I could vote, right? I could vote and say like, I want to do this one, right? And everybody would add their own routes, and everybody would have a say in like the votes that they want to cast on something. And basically it's a distinct way of like casting a vote towards something and making your point heard, rather than being like, well, and the problem is like a lot of times in the backcountry, or like when you go out there, if you don't say something like straight out, then you're not heard, right? So like I think maybe voting isn't the right way, but I was just trying to do it in a way where like people make their voice heard. Yeah, so I mean this is the app that I've made so far, and what I plan on doing, what I'm trying to do as well, is make it so that you can access beta easier, or more easy. So if you look at the top and you see the regions section, when you click on this, it basically loads all the regions, and this kind of looks like the same thing as before with the route planning. But if we actually like click on an area, so I'm just going to click on Central Sierra Nevada again, I can basically see for all the subregion places the amount of routes that have been made for each place. So for instance, where was it? Castle Peak. Okay, right here. So if I click on Castle Peak, it loads this region, and it basically shows like all the events that have been made related, or all the events that have routes around Castle Peak, and it also shows just the routes. All the routes that are around Castle Peak. Yeah, so I mean, what I'm trying to do is like build a better place for people to like actually see where people go out to like more often than likely, in different places, rather than trying to like find the beta in 20 different places. But yeah, I don't know. If you guys have like more ideas for me to like flesh out, or like just more comments, I greatly appreciate them. I do take them like heavily, and I write them down and be like, all right, I need to do this, I need to do that. One of the things that I haven't done yet, or like one of the things that one of the people said was like, you really, because the route planning was pretty janky, it was saying like, you really got to make this thing like work smoother. So I really tried to do that, and I spent a lot more time just like fleshing out this route planning thing. But yeah, I realized like there's bugs here and there. Like for instance, this shouldn't have loaded any of the aspects, but it did. So I know why that's happening. I can fix that. That's no problem. But yeah, if you guys have any more comments, just please leave them like on the Reddit page, and I'll probably address them as soon as I can. Yeah, and I guess that's all I have to say for now. Thanks for watching, guys. All right, peace.